welcome to the D3D4 Football Podcast with me, your host, James Richards. Hello everyone, it is Sunday, the 23rd of January 2022. On the podcast this week we have got 3-2 scorelines replicated 3 times in League One. We have a couple of more statement signings across both divisions, although I've been told I'm not allowed to talk about one, but we're going to do it anyway.
Oh.
We have a team doing the double over their opponents for the first time since the mid-70s. We have a striker move which has worked out quite well, at least after one game. And we have a run of 7 straight wins for a side in League Two that carries on going. And in League One, I should mention that there is a team that haven't won now in 12 straight league matches. And also, the new manager bounce is in full effect yet again. We shall come on to it. And there's another team who will be hoping for just the same next weekend. Right, I am joined by Ed Walker and David Jenkin, who is probably... Someone's rustling here, I can hear.
Someone's blowing their nose by the sounds of it.
No, it's just me moving stuff. My bad.
Oh, right.
He's moving. He's trying to hide the Gillingham stats
shame.
page.
Yeah, I'm trying to hide the shame.
That's right. Right. Before we get into the football chaps, let's just shout out some new patrons. We've got Ed Little, Nathan Edge, and Russ Teese all joining the patron team. Thank you so much, guys. We really appreciate it. As we do all our patrons, I have to say, great to have you on board. And also a big shout out to The Big Step, who we are partnered with for this season, tackling gambling adverts in football. The inundation of our game by gambling adverts. Can't stand it myself. It's far too much, and they're doing great work to combat that and the ill effects it has on people's lives. Right, chaps, let's jump straight in. Lot to talk about this week, and we're going head first into League One.
League One.
And I was struggling. There's some great results in this division this weekend. Not quite so many in League Two, to be fair, but Morecambe 3, Wycombe Wanderers 2 was where I chose to start, because this is a very, very big win for Morecambe. Wycombe, remember, top of the table, I think, coming into this. And frankly, Wycombe are just a very, very good side. So Morecambe needed to be at their best in order to get anything, I'd say. You know, I think a point against Wycombe, it would be an excellent result for Morecambe, or for most teams in this division. But they came out with a 3-2 victory, despite trailing twice. Probably a game which, you know, they may have lost earlier in the season, but they seem to have that renewed grit and determination about them. Cole Stockton banging in his 20th goal in all competitions this season, 17th in the league, to get the winner. Ed, I have to say, there are some big results across both divisions this weekend, but I'm edging towards this one being the result of the day, and I'm wondering where you stand on it.
It's definitely right up there, isn't it? How significant is the Morecambe? I'm a little bit surprised that the game between these two doesn't have a goal after the 67th minute. Doesn't feel very right with those two clubs, does it? You normally expect something in the 90th minute from either Wycombe or Morecambe.
Deep
So
into stoppage time.
for the last goal to be with still 20 minutes left to play is a bit of a surprise, but that's a massive result for Morecambe, and against a team in Wycombe that we've always said is going to have a really strong campaign.
Stephen Robinson asking for more recruits, I think, in a subtle way in his post-match interview, just saying they're a bit thin, but he was very happy with the determination his side showed, the fact that they're gelling and working well as a team, and the fact that, you know, they had 19 shots to Wycombe 17. This was not a shot-shy game. This was one where absolutely both goals were peppered. And, you know, the expression, I think, what's the expression? A good viewing for the neutral, which is always quite amusing because, of course...
It normally is a good viewing to neutral with Morecambe, to be honest. They get such hectic games.
They do get such hectic games, but I think what I do feel sorry for is that the crowd in there, who are very unlikely to be neutral, are going to be...
Real mix of emotions this year.
Yeah, nearly 4,000 there yesterday would have certainly had their nerves tested. I think Carson's been a decent purchase in goal. I've actually liked what I've seen from him, and good to see O'Connor get a stable centre-back partner in Jacob Badeau, who obviously better known by us for his time at Scunthorpe. Rather strange move to Burnley. I always wondered at the time, like, he's not going to play for Burnley, based on what I saw of him at Scunthorpe, not being unfair to him, and this loan move is excellent for him. But yeah, I think Ayunga had his best game of the season. I think that's something I'd agree with Stephen Robinson's post-match comment. And Ayunga, Stockton, and Arthur Ganoa. Ed, that's a front three with mobility, with strength, pace. You can see why Morecambe are very difficult to play against.
Oh, for sure, yeah. I remember seeing them earlier in the season. I quite like their kind of gun-ho approach to matches. They're not going to be conservative. It's not about grinding out a win for them. It's kind of about, we're going to go and score more than you. And I think that's going to lead them a lot of plaudits in the campaign.
Absolutely. And David, Akin Fenway, your little stat you told us post, pre-podcast, I should say. Akin Fenway was getting a start and scoring.
I was going to say, yeah, like across this season so far, he's had the most appearances as a substitute with 18. And now finds himself starting a game, scores within the second minute, and gives an assist for Wycombe as well. For Wycombe. Yeah, it is for Wycombe.
He does play for Wycombe, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm sure of that. Yeah.
Been there a while. They've got
there we go.
They've got a good team.
Got a goal and assist in his first start in a good while. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I saw Wycombe tweet. He's their club record scorer, isn't he? I think since they've been in the EFL in all competitions, but he's now levelled Nathan Tyson's, is it 51, did they say? 51 goals or something like that in the EFL, in the league. So I don't know if that's a significant stat or not really. But what is a significant stat is it's Morecambe 3, Wycombe 2. Wycombe disappointed, I'm sure, to come away from this one with nothing. But massive credit to Morecambe, because we were talking, I think, last week or the week before about they have to catch up to those teams in front. And where the win's going to come from, well, this is an absolutely welcome victory and a brilliant result for the Shrimps. Absolutely brilliant result. Sunderland beat Portsmouth by 1-0, and I have to say, maybe slightly fortuitously over the course of the game. I think Portsmouth made an excellent start, and you know the Sunderland fans were quite worried in the early exchanges that this game was going to be a bit of a riot, really. But no, fair play. Sunderland got a foothold in the game. Started pushing back, did quite well. Their new signings that they have brought in, Patrick Roberts being the big one, which we'll talk about, he didn't start. Danny Bath did, and Danny Bath is a player I think is a shrewd bit of business, Ed, because we've talked about their defence needing a bit of nous, a bit of experience. Well, this guy, he's 31, so he's not old, but he has played most of his career in the Championship. He's a superb defender, in my opinion, to have in League One. A bit of a leader. I'm pretty sure he's been a captain at some point through his career, I seem to remember. And yeah, just in the heart of a back three with young Doyle on his left-hand side and Flanagan, who's had a good season, on his right, that helped them get a clean sheet against a Portsmouth side who was certainly pushing.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think he'll be a superb defender to the level. I can't believe he's only 31, because I'm sure he's been at Wolves for about 1,000 years before making that move to Stoke. That's where I remember him most, that time at Wolves, in a long spell there, then went to Stoke and is now, a good calibre centre-back, certainly, and certainly the same with Patrick Roberts in the forward areas as well.
I think Patrick Roberts, there's two reasons I really like this deal. I mean, obviously, he's had some loan moves that haven't been fruitful for him. He's kind of stalled. His career has certainly, I wouldn't say come off the rails. I think that's over-egging it a bit, but it's certainly not been as impressive as it looked in its early stages, going to Celtic and scoring all those goals, often coming off the right-hand side and hitting them in with his left foot. He's a great option for Lee Johnson to have, but he'll be hungry. He'll know that this move for him is important for his career now. It'll have to work. It has to be something where he kicks back into gear and finds the form that was you were saying he was getting comparisons to, was it Scott Sinclair or someone? I think
there was something like that around it.
Yeah.
During his time with Celtic, because of the Manchester City link. And he feels a bit like, if you remember Lewis Baker at Chelsea, just someone who had loads and loads of loan spells away from the club, but never actually looked like playing through his parent club at all. So I think the permanent move was always on the cards, really. Yeah,
and he'll suit a Lee Johnson system, if you ask me. I think that's going to be an exciting addition. Nice assist for Stewart in this one. Embleton scoring his fourth goal of the season to get the
Not
winner.
a great setup from Hayden Cartwright, though.
No, I
don't like him at all. That.
No, he's had a good. He's a good defender, and Danny Cowley was quite, reflective on that in the post-match. I mean, Danny Cowley said the pitch is not befitting the stadium or a club of Sunderland's stature. Not happy clearly with the surface, but it's the same for both teams. And Lee Johnson's side, let's be honest, they do play football, so they'll they'll be as handicapped by their own pitch as Portsmouth were. But an important win for Sunderland, because if you looked at the form table, they were sort of down in the sort of middle range of it over the last 6 games. Needed a win because we know Wigan have been going great guns and want to keep on the coattails of them if they can. And having played 2 more games than Rotherham, they needed this win. Portsmouth only 1 point from a week of 3 games. I mean, Danny Cowley, certainly I'd agree the performances of the team have deserved more, but they're just not scoring goals, and they sent one of their strikers out of the club. I do like Tyler Walker, by the way, coming in from Coventry. I mean, from what we saw of him during his time with clubs at this level before, he was a very exciting player, and I think he could do quite well. Whether the Marquis sale is a good thing or a bad thing for Portsmouth, I mean, Portsmouth fans will say it is. He's not had a good time there for whatever reason, but we'll talk about him a bit more when we cover Lincoln. I think it's probably a move that will suit both the player and both clubs involved long term. Speaking of Wigan, a 3-2 win, David, against your side, Gillingham. At one point, this looked like it was going to be an absolute carnage. It was going to be a slaughterhouse game, because they quickly established themselves in this one, Wigan. Your defending in that first half for both goals was lackadaisical at best. Will Keane with his 14th and 15th goals of the season in this one. But a bit of a spirited fight back. But first of all, Ed, Wigan, they're just relentless, aren't they? They find ways to win every week, and not always by playing their best football, although Humphreys did score a lovely goal in this one. But those games in hand now that we were talking about, they've still got 4 games in hand. They got 54 points from 24 matches, and still got 4 games in hand over the team that's second, and 2 games in hand over the team that's third. I mean, it's looking excellent for them at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, I was going to bring up the games in hand. We did have a discussion about that previously. And I think, it's still wrong to look at Wigan and say they're guaranteed to go 12 points clear of Sunderland, but you've got to look at the position they're in, level on points with 4 games in hand. They could extend that lead a lot further than where they are at the moment.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. And like I say, they're just looking strong. They didn't have new signing Josh McGuinness playing, so he's a player to sort of factor into the mould when he comes back, and certainly an excellent signing. Gillingham, David, dropped to the bottom of the table. No win in 12 league games. You have to go back to October to find the last time you won a game. I think that was against Doncaster.
Just realised the gap's 10 points to 20th.
Ooh. Not looking good, is it, David?
No, certainly not. I mean, to be fair, if there's one, I'm going to try and take the positives for today. It was positive that we've gone 2-0 down, but at least we fought back and we're trying. That's more than I could have probably have said for some of the games under Evans' tenure towards the end. However, as we've seen in previous spells with Steve Lovell, the defensive coaching is woeful, and the tactical knowledge defensively, and sometimes the tactical knowledge overall, is woeful. So it was never an appointment I was particularly keen about. I'm sure both of you are aware of that, but I think at this point it's one of those situations where most Gills fans I've spoken to, and myself included, are pretty much resigned to the fact that we'll be playing League 2 football next season. So it's probably more of a case of just waiting this season, maybe making the right appointment if Lovell is the one to keep us to the end of the season. Hopefully we'll make the right appointment in the summer or sooner than that in preparation for League 2 football next year for a go at it to get back up. But I'm not confident on the fact that we'll get anything from this season, to be honest. So
I was pleased. I have to say, I was pleased to see you guys, after that shocking first half, really push yourselves, get level. But you shot yourself in the foot, like you say, the goal for the winner, the unmarked header.
That's just horrific.
Yeah. You see the defenders looking at each other, but someone has to take responsibility.
I think that in itself is a problem when you look at the fact if they're all looking at each other, then that really says to me that they've not been drilled well enough, or none of them really know what their roles are properly. And if you don't know what your roles are properly and you're looking around at each other and you're thinking, oh, you should have had that or you should have had that, that falls on the manager as well.
It's just that it's Will Keane. He's probably, to me, the best header of a ball in that Wigan team, and no one's gone on it for a corner.
No. I mean, just
That is
the defending overall was woeful, but hopefully we'll get one or two results this season where we'll get a win. But I mean, honestly, we should get more than that in fairness, but it's not looking good with, as James mentioned, 12 games without a win, 14 in all competitions. So it's not looking particularly positive for us right now at the bottom of the table.
No, clearly not. Doncaster doing their best to keep you there with a win against MK Dons. Apologies, I don't remember which fan it was, but someone pointed out that 40% of Doncaster's wins this season have come against MK Dons, which I thought was quite funny. But yes,
I'd argue that's the biggest result of the day for me. Like when you've got a team that were bottom of the table against a team of the playoffs that managed to pull off a victory.
I would say in League One it is, yeah, I agree with that.
Huge for Doncaster.
Although I would say that MK's pitch is just flat mud, and it doesn't really suit their style, maybe. They're disguising it with a bit of greenery, but that, when you look at the close-ups of it, it does look like rolled mud. In the 70s...
Did anyone see the little incident with Doncaster's keeper in the second half?
What was this?
I think it was a cross that came in. One of the defenders has left it to the keeper, Jones, to pick up, and he just dropped it through his legs, and it's rolling over the line. Someone clears it away.
Oh, yes, I did see that,
oh,
yeah.
Gosh.
That was some
the
great
defender
defending.
was, but it was very thankful for the man behind him there, and I thought, ooh, that was awkward.
Yes, excellent defending. Someone had the forethought to think, just in case, I'll stay where I am.
Just in case, yeah.
Yeah, just in case. Oxford United beat Sheffield Wednesday for the second time this season, doing the double open for the first time since 1973-74 season. Matt Taylor with his 13th and 14th goals of the campaign, as Oxford United were very fortunate, I have to say, to not be out of sight, or buried, I should say, by half-time. Sheffield Wednesday were 1-0 up, and should have been 3-0 up. They had some great chances. They were on the front foot. They were pushing hard. And just some pretty... they switched off just before half-time to allow Matt Taylor to head an equaliser. I mean, there's no... If you're Darren Moore, there's no way Matt Taylor should be winning a header there and getting us level before half-time. But credit to the boys in yellow. They came back and they played a much better second half. But when Windass scored that lovely... It was like a little 1-2 round the corner goal... I did fear the worst, because Sheffield Wednesday had looked physically more impressive. Just skill levels were better than Oxford at that stage, and I was looking at the game thinking, I'd take a point right now if we could get it. And we pulled level immediately, and I think that's where, again, that was vital, because if Sheffield Wednesday had settled into a bit of a pattern in that second half where they'd led been able to sort of manage the game a little bit and settle down with a lead, we would have been in trouble. But we equalised almost immediately. A bit fortuitous that the ball came back off the keeper for Matt Taylor to score, but again, not great defending from Sheffield Wednesday. And then a Sam Winnell header, his first goal of the season against his old club, to win it was absolutely brilliant for him.
I feel like this result reflects Sheffield Wednesday's season.
It does. I mean, they've only had back-to-back wins on 2 occasions this season in the league, and one of those was when they had that run of 3 games right at the beginning of the season, where they, I think, within their first 5 matches they won 3 in a row, and since then they've only won back-to-back games once, and it's a problem. Like they'll put in a good performance, but like again yesterday defensively switched off. They've got players in there that are too good for the level. I think Windass is showing he's a really good player. Barry Bannon with a wonderful finish, and they should have been in control at half time. But the fact that they weren't, if you're not going to take your chances, if you're not going to take the opportunities when you're dominant, you've got to make sure that you're switched on at the back, because they got themselves in the lead again, and they should have, like I say, they should have gone to win it, but they didn't. And I agree with you, Ed, sums up their campaign somewhat. And a big win for Oxford, who'd been on a wobble, and I was questioning whether we'd be in the playoffs. I still think they're overall, I'm not going to discount the performance overall yesterday, because I don't think we probably deserve the win on balance of play, but I think there are probably 6 teams better.
You are way too humble, James.
Than Oxford this season.
You are way too humble.
We'll see what happens in this transfer window. There's a lot of talk about some of our key players leaving, so we'll wait and see. But where would we be without Matty Taylor? He's absolutely brilliant. He really does have a level of on-the-pitch intelligence that puts him and gives him that extra yard of space, because he's not particularly pacey. It's not his it's not his physicality.
No,
or
he's
anything.
just an absolute pain to play against because he's a brilliant poacher.
Brilliant poacher, great positions he takes up. He's just got nous and know-how in abundance, and I'm so happy that he is a yellow. Really am. Plymouth lost to Lincoln 2-1. Plymouth now lost 6 of their last 9 in the league, so struggling somewhat. But this is a great result for Lincoln to go to Argyle. They had 10 players out injured. They had a 19-year-old keeper thrown in to make his debut. They had a makeshift back 4. But what they did have was an actual striker, an actual number 9 playing at the number 9 position.
Number 27, number 9.
Well, he's not. He's a number 9 in terms of his position. His shirt number, and I assume the 9 is taken already by maybe Tom Hopper or something. But
I think so.
For all intents and purposes, they had someone who was playing up front who's actually a striker, and it makes a massive difference because I think Michael Appleton realises that this is a team. His teams create opportunities always. They're very dangerous. But they never have someone, like against Cambridge, they had no one in their right area to finish them off, and any chances they get, they tend to fluff. And this signing of John Marquis, I think, is perfect business because he'll come to a club that will create him plenty of opportunities. He's a striker with a very good record, regardless of how he performed at Portsmouth. And I think it will be we'll see, a match made in heaven. He probably should have had another one if he's a bit sharper.
The thing I'd say with Marquis to my time of watching him at Doncaster mainly, yes, he's absolutely a goal-getter at this level and he should be a good striker for Lincoln. His show reel does include some pretty bad misses. He is guilty of it. He gets a lot of chances and not all of them are converted. That's my experience of John Marquis.
Yeah, and yet he still scores so many goals.
Yeah, he could have even more is what I'm saying. There are some bad misses in there, but he is a dependable goal scorer and I do agree. I think this will be a good sign to Lincoln in the long term.
I certainly think it will be. I certainly think it will be. And I think what you look at Lincoln, I mean, Regan Poole has been very, very impressive given the kind of the players that they're missing. Max Melbourne, obviously, who is on loan and wasn't really playing for Stevenage this season, gets the winner in stoppage time, which, brilliant to see him having a go. But what you think about Lincoln is that sort of 4, they've got like 4 dangerous players up front. Cullen and Marquis, I think, will have a good relationship, but they've got Whittaker and Scully as well. Those 4 are just going to be so dangerous, and they'll create chances. And it's good to see the Lincoln board sort of backing Appleton and bringing him in the players that now could make a massive difference to their season. Very impressive bit of business, and again, easy to see why, looking at how many chances they miss and don't take, why they've struggled this season, but easy also to see why, with the performances they're putting in, they can go on a good run and go the other way. Not a great result for Plymouth, I think. Massively disappointed across the 90 minutes that they let it slip so late on, and just this run they've been on is pretty difficult, to be honest. Bolton have been on a tricky spell of late, Ed. But Dion Charles bashing home. I think that's his first goal for the Trotters, isn't it?
I believe so, and some hit as well.
Oh, what a goal it was! And they were, to be fair, I think Shrewsbury deserved something out of this game. They had to they threw a lot at Bolton, but I don't like Steve Cottrell. Like, I'll put it out there, his interviews really get on my nerves. He's so unnecessarily.
What, Ian Everett-Stone?
Oh, Ian Everett has kind of improved slightly. I mean, he was awful last season at times. I think I haven't seen any that really annoy me recently. But just Steve Cottrell he's rude. Like, people ask him questions. Is it good to have a game so soon to try and bounce back from this defeat? I don't know, really. I don't care. I don't think so. No. I mean, it's just like unnecessarily brash with the reporters who are only doing their jobs. I mean, I'd hate to be someone having to interview him after the game. He's always got this sort of funny attitude. Yeah, he said, I'm a bit down, we've lost, so I'm in a bit of a bad mood right now. Fair enough, but basic etiquette, mate. Honestly, there's no need for that. And overall, I think he should be quite chipper. His team's performances have gone up recently. They were unlucky not to get something from this game against a Bolton side who are, yes, they're in not great form, but they're still got some good players, and this is a Bolton side that are going to be going, I think, in an upward direction from now until the end of the season. So, but yes, that does irk me, and I'm sure Shrewsbury fans, even with their sort of blue and amber blinkers on, will admit the same. I'm not a big fan of Carl Robinson's interviews most of the time, but I certainly find Steve Cotterill, when things are not going well, unnecessarily brash with reporters. Charlton, Ed, we said Johnny Jackson would have a blip at some point. He had one, but he sort of bounced back yesterday with a 2-0 win over Fleetwood, who've been in good form. Mason Burstow, 5 goals in his 13 appearances so far. Brave decision to play a youngster like that against a team like Fleetwood who've been in decent form?
I would say so. I don't know if there was any alternative. I'm not entirely sure or not. Not entirely sure on the squad situation at Charlton at the moment.
What do you think of Charlton under Jackson? He certainly deserves a lot of credit for changing the expectation levels, I'd say, and moving them away from that dreadful position that they were in before he came in.
Yeah, they've done that, certainly, and there is an upward trajectory with them. I'm just not quite sure how high it goes yet. I don't think it's playoffs. I think that's too far to reach, unfortunately, for them, and I would hope it's top half, but I'm not entirely sure where they end up at the moment.
I mean, this is only their first win in 5 since he took over, isn't it? So it's not even as if since he's been like officially appointed. So it's not even as if they've completely taken it by storm after the appointment.
It's weird how that happens, though, isn't it? It tends to happen like that.
Yeah, it is strange. That
it does present a good opportunity for them now for this to build off of. A good win at a good win at the Valley over Fleetwood, especially as you say, an informed team that maybe some people wouldn't have predicted them to beat at this point, but definitely much needed for the home team.
I like what Fleetwood have done this transfer window. To be honest, I think obviously Ellis Harrison has strengthened them. Zach Jules has strengthened them. They've got players in that I think you look at and go, yeah, this is a good team. And also they've got Jay Mattet, a youngster who was on Grimsby. He's starting to get minutes in League One, which would be good. Paddy Lane's been exceptional. I think Sherridan Morris has been a sort of he's got big impact, and they've got Toto Inciala as well, signed in from Ipswich. So this is starting to look like Fleetwood will strengthen their squad, and they'll be in a much stronger position. But I think credit to Johnny Jackson for getting that win yesterday. Cambridge, very impressed with Cambridge this season. They beat Crewe by 1-0. Another player who's impressed me over the last couple of seasons is Adam May. He got the winner, and just like we said last week, Cambridge is a side that you can enjoy being a supporter of at the moment with the way that they're trending. It'd been 20 years in the doldrums for them, and a bit of a controversial incident in the Ipswich-Accrington game. It finished 2-1 to Ipswich, goals from Wes Burns and Connor Chaplin, Ethan Hamilton getting the goal for Accrington. But should Sam Morsey have been sent off? I think when you see the replay, it's pretty clear cut, isn't it, guys?
Yeah, I mean, I'd probably say so. You can't really do something like that and expect not to walk. But I suppose that certainly wasn't the way the ref was thinking about it at the time. Anyway,
do you think he saw it? It's off the ball. He basically punched him in the face. I just don't know what he was thinking, really.
It's a tough one to know, isn't it? The only person that's going to know whether he saw it or not is the ref himself. But you'd assume that at least one of the, you'd assume that one of the linos or something would have seen something. But
he didn't get a booking, which for me, do you reckon this will be retrospectively punished?
I think it's becoming more and more of a thing these days, isn't it? Where we've got so much video evidence that I imagine it will be at least investigated. Whether or not they'll change that and punish him on it is another matter entirely. The FA seem to be very selective sometimes on which ones they punish and which ones they don't.
I have a feeling this might be. I don't know. We'll see, because it was at 1-1 when the incident took place, and obviously it could have changed the game. But it's again not great. Tyrick Beckinson is a player that Ipswich signed this week, which I think is going to be interesting, adding a bit of depth in there to a team already replete with a lot of talent. But maybe my mind is starting to think that this season's gone for Ipswich, and they'll have to go again next year. We'll see. Not entirely sure what their board are thinking, if they're still hoping that they can turn it around and push higher up the table. But I feel a little bit sorry for Accrington there, because I think if that was my team on the end of that decision, I wouldn't have been too happy. Ed, Rotherham beating Cheltenham, a pretty blatant foul in the build up to this goal. But are you thinking that Rotherham this is what they do? They just keep winning and they're going to be. At the moment, in my mind, I've got Wigan and Rotherham as the sort of leaders and the teams to beat for automatic promotion. Do you think that's fair?
I think this is kind of referring to the Rotherham, getting the win. On the incident of the goal, it is a foul, but I don't really blame Boyle for trying to be Boyle and stand his ground. It does make it look like Smith kind of bullied him a bit in the build-up to it, but I think there's other defenders certainly who would have hit the deck on that situation and won a foul from it, but Boyle refused to do that. He wanted to win the battle.
We talk about Cheltenham like a couple of weeks ago. We're not worried about them, but they haven't won a game since.
Yeah, their winless run isn't
November.
great at all.
And they're only 4 points above the drop zone thanks to Morecambe's win yesterday. So at some point we're going to have to say, you know what, that they need to pick up a few more points. I mean, they're not losing in this winless run. What they about 4 draws?
No, their recent games, some of their draws have been them taking the lead, just not holding on to the advantage. They're not having to recover it. That's been the big frustration, probably, I'd say.
Indeed, I would be slightly worried. But yes, Rotherham with that keep themselves very much in a positive position near the top of the table. I still think they're one of the 2 best sides at this level, and we shall see how that goes. Coming on towards the business end of the season, Burton and AFC Wimbledon played out a 1-1 draw. Jefferson getting Burton's equaliser after Ollie Palmer had scored for AFC Wimbledon. Redoni with another impressive performance and a good assist as well for the Dons. How many has Jefferson scored this season, Ed? He seems to be doing quite well.
He is up to 7 in the league and I believe 9 in all competitions now.
And how old is he? He's quite a young lad.
He's 18. He's growing really well.
He's a really impressive player, isn't he? I have to say, one of the best dribbles I've seen this season from Powell in this one. Really good run.
Yeah, I quite like him too. I also kind of feel Wimbledon stood off him a bit. I think from a Wimbledon respect, I've been pretty disappointed with the lack of pressure really put onto him. He just kind of drifted down the side, really. Yeah,
he showed a fair turn of pace. Will be interesting to see what FC Wimbledon do in the transfer window, because I still think up top they need a different option to Palmer, really, if they're going to be safe and clear of.
Well, I haven't been impressed with that Aaron Pressley that they've had on loan to Brentford. Whenever I've seen him,
no,
he hasn't really caught my eye at all. So yeah, I'm a little bit worried about Wimbledon. I think their only addition so far has been a young Lithuanian goalkeeper. They need some reinforcements, otherwise it could be a tricky second half of the campaign, I think.
Yeah, especially if the improvements we've seen at Morecambe continue. Yeah, I agree. And Crewe, can't discount Crewe. They've looked a little bit better of late as well. The league table is Wigan top with 54 points from just 24 games played. 4 games less than Sunderland in second, who have 54 points also, but an inferior goal difference. Rotherham, Wycombe, MK Dons and Oxford are the current sides in the playoffs. Plymouth dropped out because of their defeat to Lincoln yesterday, and the other sides sort of in and amongst it are Sheffield Wednesday, Ipswich and Portsmouth, but they're a bit more of a points gap growing, 8 points back, Ipswich and Portsmouth as it stands right now. Like I said, at the bottom, Gillingham, 10 points from safety after 26 games, only 18 points picked up in that time. Doncaster, Crewe and Morecambe, the other side in there. But at the moment, Morecambe are only a point behind Fleetwood and a point behind AFC Wimbledon, and then 3 points further forward than them are Shrewsbury Town. Right, let's jump in and chat League Two.
League Two.
And as per usual, there was a sacking on Sunday after we recorded the podcast. We did kind of call
Was
it
on
though.
Sunday?
I'm pretty sure it was on Sunday.
It was Monday, wasn't it? I thought it was Monday.
I thought it was after midweek.
I think I'm just getting into the habit of assuming every time a manager is sacked it's on a Sunday after a podcast.
Was it not after their defeat to Sutton in midweek?
You're right.
I think it was. Yeah,
I was going to say, it certainly wasn't after.
We haven't kept this. This does not count towards our record, James. We're not counting this one. I know you said you wanted to see it last weekend, but we're not counting this.
Okay. Well, okay. There we go. I'm just so used to it. I think I must assume every sacking's on a Sunday after the podcast. But yeah, Hayden Mullin's gone. I have no complaints about that. I think.
No, I agree with you.
He hadn't done anything in his tenure that had suggested to me that he was going to get this team doing anything other than struggle. And sure enough, Wayne Brown comes in, Joe Dunn as well, and they win 3-0 at Salford, which is just
It's a massive win, isn't it?
Really.
crazy, absolutely crazy result. Because Salford have been on a decent little run themselves. They signed Matt Smith, which is ridiculous for League Two. And you looked and I thought, oh dear, this is not baptism of fire. But no, they had a game plan. They caught them on the counter attack. They played some good football. And we've talked about the squad being better than what it should be. What it is in the league. But yeah, absolutely amazing. I mean, what do you think they'll do? I think if Wayne Brown has a good spell, I mean, he's obviously, if you don't remember, he was one of those players that was part of the great Colchester team that managed to, in Layer Road, take this team to the Championship. They had people like Umalumo, Curitan, I'm trying to think who else, Dugid was in that team. But Wayne Brown was like a great centre-back. He was such a good defender. And, so he's got Colchester in his blood, and I think he was just so proud of them yesterday. He said they should really be proud of that performance because they've been on a dreadful run. I was joking with some gifs and stuff in midweek when they lost that it'd been such a long time, but I have to say I didn't see this coming. I think Miles Kenlock is a decent addition on loan from Ipswich. I mean, of this lineup, let's just have a quick peek at the Colchester lineup.
They brought in 7 players from Ipswich over this season.
It's ridiculous, isn't it? How many people have played for Ipswich?
It does seem to be the Ipswich B team, doesn't it? Literally,
well, it's the location, isn't it? It just makes sense to do.
They've got Kenlock, Chambers, Hughes, Skuse, Judge and Sears in the starting lineup who had all played for Ipswich. I mean, they didn't change the formation. It was still a 4-2-3-1. But Sears, Hannon, Judge, Sarpong, Brendan Waidu playing sort of in the 10 role. And Skuse and Hughes are going to be good players. They've played at a high level. Kenlock gives them, I think, better balance and more energy on that left-hand side. And obviously, Tom Dallison and Chambers are decent centre-backs at this level. Shamal George.
And then you've got Shamal George in goal, who is proving himself to have an unreal season, really.
Oh, he's brilliant. I mean, they've missed him.
Had some crucial saves in this game as well to keep the scoreline as it was.
Yeah, they've missed him. He had a rib injury, and it's great to see him back. And, can't understate his importance. I think his stats were saying that he was the best goalkeeper at this level before he got injured. And so to lose him, as good as Jake Turner was, I think Shamal George is proving to be a top keeper and has a great future ahead of him. But yeah, a great result for them. And I think, like I said, I was going to make a point that probably it's an opportunity for Wayne Brown to put himself very strongly in the hot seat. I mean, we say this all the time about caretakers, but actually he's a guy who's got a great history with the club, so it might make sense. Salford disappointing, really. Like, there's no excuses for a team that's got the quality that they have, just not to perform to great levels. I mean, I know they're missing a few players. Ian Henderson.
It's just been the whole season. Win one, lose one. Too inconsistent. They might bring in Matt Smith, who is an unbelievable sign to level and should be brilliant for them. But I think Salford really, since entering the Football League, have been a more scary team sheet than an actually scary team.
I agree. Yeah, absolutely. And I can't say that it hasn't made me chuckle at times. But, they will be hugely disappointed with the performance yesterday against a side that, obviously, new manager bounced, but a side that had been in terrible form. So they didn't take advantage of a really poor result for them. Tranmere are the essence of consistency. Another clean sheet. 15 clean sheets this season, more than any side in the top 4 tiers of English football. They've had 7 clean sheets in the last 8 games. And I have to say a big shout out to Chid Kelly, the kit man who had a heart attack. This result was sort of dedicated to him by their manager, Mickey Mellon, in the post-match interview. He's actually quite emotional afterwards, after the game. And that just sort of tells you what a tight-knit group this lot are. So we do wish Chid Kelly a rapid recovery. He's fighting and he's in a stable condition, but that's quite a scary thing for them to have to go through. Been a tough week. But to go to Crawley, get a win, and it was comfortable. And John Yems was pretty angry after the game that he said, we didn't lay a glove on them, we didn't push them, we didn't do anything. Glenmore signs a new contract and then lets in a pretty poor winning goal. I mean, not going to blame him at all because he's kept them in a lot of games this season, and it's great to see him sign a new deal. But they were all going to be disappointed with that goal. But Jordan Tunnicliffe coming back is a big thing. He's a very, very good defender, and I think he'll add something to them. Obviously, always difficult his first game, but I mean, apart from the soft goal, they did defend quite well.
I've got a question for you two.
Yeah.
Tranmere play Forest Green next week in what is a very tasty-looking game. Could Tranmere catch them?
They're the only team that can, in my opinion.
Do you think it's possible, though?
I don't think they will. No. I don't think they will.
Absolutely not. Forest are flying. They've only lost 2 in the entirety of the season. They're considerably ahead as it is. Even with a goal in, even with a game in hand, I don't see anybody catching Forest, if I'm honest, unless they absolutely...
But if they win next week, that 7-point gap becomes 4, and all of a sudden you'll be looking at it.
Yeah, I just think,
I still don't see it.
I just think Forest Green have been that strong, but you're right, if any team will, it's Tranmere. Contrasting styles.
And they would love to catch Forest Green, let me
would.
tell you now.
The fact that there's a lot of niggle.
Absolutely love it.
The fact there's a lot of niggle makes this so much, for people like me, I love it. Can't wait to see this. But and a shout out to the fact that Sam Foley was playing centre back due to the fact that Knights Percival and Tom Davies were out. So they kept a clean sheet without even having a centre back playing in their normal position. So really good stuff from Tranmere in this one. Mansfield keep going. 7 wins in a row. First time since they were in the conference, actually, in 2012-13, when they won 12 in a row in that crazy campaign where they just absolutely bombed the National League. Beating Barrow. I mean, to be honest, it's getting a bit easy for them now. So what they're doing is they're having a man sent off and then winning with 10 men.
Klopp's got so many players who can go in so many different positions. He could just shuffle one into another. It's like that Dutch team from the 70s. They're just playing all different positions, just interchange constantly.
Well, they've just added Lucas Aikens, so tell us about this signing, Ed, despite the fact you
I don't want to talk about this signing.
I know, it hurts. I know. Get it.
Yeah. I think of the Burton perspective, we all kind of knew it was coming. He's not the player he once was. He's had an incredible period with the club. He's one of the greatest players in the club's history, and his legacy will live on forever. I think he adds a great amount of value to Mansfield in the short term. I'm not entirely sure where he's going to go, because he can play everywhere, and I don't think Mansfield's system really utilises wingers at the moment. So my thoughts would be he either operates as a kind of right back or as another one on the front too. So I'm really curious to see what that goes in the long term. But they've been chasing this guy for a long time, and they've finally got him, and it could be a really big impact in their season.
I just think it's unfair that they're signing quality like this. I mean, they've proven now that they don't need 11 players on the pitch to win. So next week, I think we should have them put.
We should have a handicap to start with.
Well, yeah, Nigel Clough should go in goal. Is what I was going to suggest.
No, I'll stick Clotty up top again. Get him playing like he used to.
No, they'd still win if he was up top. He was a good striker. I mean, just a phenomenal run that they're on. And I jested last week that I can't see them finishing higher than 16th. I mean, this is a team that finally are starting to indicate.
Are you on the wagon? Come on, James, you're on it now. Come on.
Well, 7 straight wins. You got to be. I mean,
come on. There we go.
They're looking really strong. They've got strength in depth. Aikens is an excellent signing. Again, who's so versatile. Like you said, this is they just.
He's the perfect Clough player because he just goes everywhere and he's reliable everywhere he goes.
Yeah,
perfect.
And a great example to others as well with his fitness levels and his professionalism. So, yeah, really good signing. Matt Taylor derby. Matt Taylor won it. I mean, the Exeter Matt Taylor won it. 2-0. Walsall's thin squad.
He's even thinner now.
I mean, they're playing. Is it Tom Leake as the centre back alongside?
Yes, 21-year-old lad, and he's the only available centre back they got now with René Isi out. So it could well be Hayden White playing alongside him.
And he didn't look great in there.
No, I don't like him as a centre back.
No, Walsall. Obviously,
they're dire, James.
Something's
got to change there. They are really dire.
You were at this game, weren't you? So
yes, there was a lot of vocal support against getting rid of the board because they're just not going in a good direction at all. It's really, really.
My question to you is: what would the score have been yesterday if Carl Rushworth wasn't in goal for Wolves?
Oh,
I mean, he did look like superhuman at times, didn't he?
Yeah, he did have a very good game. It was quite ironic, really. He pulls off this brilliant kind of a cross goal save to deny a second Exeter goal. They announced the man of the match in about the 83rd minute as Rushworth, deservedly so. But then Czech Diabate gets a 3-header from a corner and they concede pretty much instantly. again, a second goal, which is not Roche's fault, to be honest. It's on the terrible marking from the corner, but no, they're. I dread to think what scoreline it could have been yesterday. It wasn't him. He did have a very good display, but can you ever really feel encouraged when your goalkeeper's your best performer?
Oh no. I mean, that just shows how badly beat up you've been in the match. I mean, was it 4 without a win now in the league for Walsall? Only scored 1 in their last 3 as well. They've only got 1 striker at the club, and he's on loan, and that's George Miller. They've got no centre-backs available.
I thought Conor Wilkinson put in a good effort up top today. He's a player I do like, but it's so difficult when there's no clear identity in their style of play. It just goes forwards in the hope that it lands to someone.
Yeah, whacking
There's no
it long
identity to it.
is not what...
Then you compare it to Exeter, who are so structured with the way they get their wing-backs up. I actually love Jake Caprice, who plays out on the left, even though he's more of a right-back. It plays quite inverted. And Archie Collins' little feints to get away from his man is just so enjoyable as well. It was a stroll to Exeter, that game. They probably should have won by more.
Only downside is they did lose Ofrande Zanzala to a knee injury. And he was brought in because they were light up top. So that's disappointing. But Exeter... 3 unbeaten now, back-to-back wins, starting to look a little bit better than they had been recently, that's for sure. Got to talk about Forest Green, 3-0 win yesterday, and this is what, Carlisle had been improving and been much better defensively, but this is a marker of how good Forest Green are.
Yep.
It just make it look easy. And have Matty Stevens and Jamil Matt scored 30 goals combined or 31? Because I've got it as 31. I thought Jamil Matt scored.
I've got it down as 31 as well. 15 to Stevens and 16 to Matt.
Yeah. There seems to be some confusion on the stat pages about this, but I had it as 31, which is more than 13 teams who've scored in total in this division. Which is I couldn't believe that.
It's amazing, isn't it? Really,
yeah.
You get teams who have an informed striker. You don't get ones with an informed front two. That shouldn't happen normally, does it?
It's not
That
often.
explains why they're so far ahead.
I think I'm trying to think of famous strikers. Was it Sutton and Shearer at Blackburn?
Yeah, you think of like the Premier League ones. You don't really think of it down the lower leagues, do you?
95. Yeah, there's not been
Cole
that
and
many.
Dwight York, that kind of partnerships. Yeah.
Yeah, these two have done brilliantly. Matty and Matt, as they should be known.
And I think it helps when you got such good deliveries from out wide from Kane Wilson and Nicky Cadden, who are just unbelievable.
Cadden's been one of the best signings at this level for a long time. He's really come in well, and he's one of the sort of shining lights of what you can get if you get recruitment right. I mean, he came in from north of the border, didn't he? And he's been absolutely superb. Defensively, they look solid. I think Jordan Moore-Taylor is a great centre-back and is having a prolonged period of good health because he's had a lot of injury problems. Just excellent stuff. And they're averaging something like 2.3 points or 2.2 points per game this season, which is crazy.
Northampton back in 15-16 got 99 points.
Which, yeah. Well,
it's doable.
Of course it is, yeah. Of course it is. I'm not. I mean, we say no one will catch them, and on their current form, I can still quite confidently say I don't think anyone will. It'd take a bit of a blip for them to fall away, but yes, a very impressive result. Swindon and Bristol Rovers drew 1-1. Tyree Simpson still such a good player. He's so physical. Getting the goal for Swindon, but yeah, good result I think overall for Bristol Rovers going to the county ground and getting a point. Good to see them having some of their players come back from injury because they'd had a pretty difficult time of injuries across the season. Leyton Orient and Port Vale drew 0-0, so Port Vale kind of stopped the rot. They'd been on a tricky run, 3 straight defeats, so they stopped the rot there. Rochdale 0, Bradford 0 was another result which I think. I look at Rochdale. They've signed a chap. What was the name of the chap that they signed from non-league? Who's
Luke Charman from Darlington.
Luke Charman, 12 goals in 16 games for Darlington. So we'll see how he does.
I quite like it because they picked up Beasley, didn't they, from Solihull, and he showed the value he can have in the Football League, and I hope Charman could do the same for them.
I hope so. He's a Newcastle youth team protege, and he dropped out of the EFL, found some form and has come back in. So, and I think under Robbie Stockdale, who's got a good youth development record, that could be an interesting signing for them. Scunthorpe, I should say Rory Watson lost 1-0 to Newport. Such was the Alamo situation in that first half. Newport should have buried Scunthorpe yesterday. It took a Courtney Baker Richardson header to win the game, his 8th of the season. Very impressive football. A lot of Scunthorpe fans comparing Newport to Barcelona. So, which I mean, they played really well and were pretty pretty unlucky that they didn't get more goals in this one, but Rory Watson did have a superb game. Sutton and Northampton also another 0-0 in the division this weekend. What was the controversial incident? Was it the sending
There's a
off?
red card to Craig Eastman, and I'm not sure I agree with it. It seems to me that he's put his arm out over the Northampton man to try and shield it as he takes control of the ball, and I think it's been perceived as like a punch or something.
I hope they appeal it, because it was actually not spotted by the on-the-pitch official. The ref didn't see it. I didn't see any big appeals from any of the players, the Northampton players, so that's often a sign that nothing really serious has happened. But yeah, we'll see what happens with that one, because he's only just come back from suspension, so it would be a big loss if they lose him. Stevenage and Hartlepool played out a 1-1 draw. Neither side, well, Stevenage in decent form, but not very good away from home this season, and Hartlepool on a little bit of a blip themselves since Graham Lee's come in. They've lost some players. You know, Matty Daly's left, Tyler Burry's left as well. Will Goodwin's
They've lost
gone
their
back.
big performing loanies, which is not the
Yeah, all their loanies have pretty much gone back, haven't they? So
yeah.
And Oldham lost 3-0 to Jack Muldoon. Harrogate 3, Oldham Athletic 0, and John Sherridan is back.
Do you two think that bottom two has been decided?
Yeah, I do.
I don't see how it couldn't be. There's 6 points. Scunthorpe are 6 points adrift of Colchester at this point with the results they're both getting. Scunthorpe haven't won a game in the last 4.
But he's back at Oldham.
John Sherridan, yeah. And he's offered to come back for free.
I generally think it's the only club. John Sheridan appointment now is seen as a good one now.
I mean, I don't
think anyone else would look at Sheridan and not like it. But
I don't even think it's a good appointment for them. I just don't think who else would possibly take that job. Right.
Well, he's doing it for free, apparently, isn't he? I mean, he offered to do it for free because his love for Oldham is so strong. He's had a
was
play.
it now 6 different spell there? I think I heard.
Yeah. He's harder to get rid of than that mould around the bath. It would seem. Really, I mean, Oldham are a team in big trouble, and the reason that, like you say, about those two are decided. I mean, just the strength of their squads is so poor compared to, look at Colchester. Like, they've got a much better squad, I reckon, than Scunthorpe or Oldham.
Yeah. And they're also making those additions that are going to make the difference as well. But I think with 6 points adrift, I don't know where between now and the end of the season they're going to get those points to build on that. And I actually really don't see Colchester or anyone in that kind of bottom area above the drop zone that's going to go on a bad enough run to be able to drop into those places anyway.
You
wait till 3 weeks from now when they both win 3 on the bounce.
Yeah, it can happen. It's just that, you look at Oldham's, they're playing a Harrogate side that have been in poor form themselves. The big problem for Oldham is they don't score goals. 1 goal scored in the last 4. They did score 5 against Forest Green, which seems like an anomaly to me.
That's just typical Oldham, that.
Yeah, crazy.
Just so typical.
But they're looking for a striker. They need a striker because they actually don't really have a proper one at the club. And when Matt Smith, a former Oldham player, a bit of a legend for what he did in the cup for them, is joining Salford, it's like salt in the wound, isn't it? Really. But yes, we shall see if there can be the Resurrection Mark III. I think it'll be the 3rd time that he's returned to Oldham to keep them up. So we'll have a very close eye on all of that. The league table does not lie at this stage of the season. Forest Green deservedly miles ahead of everyone else, currently 7 points clear at the top of the table, having played a game less than Tranmere, who are in second with 48 points from 26 games. Sutton third, 44 points from 26, and then Northampton, who have a game in hand of them, 2 points further back. Newport, Swindon and Mansfield, the other sides in that playoff place positions. Mansfield finally up there. Good to see after what is a terrible run earlier in the campaign. Exeter and Port Vale will be pushing them hard, I think. Salford, I'm not sold on them at all just because they lack consistency, like we said. And then at the bottom you've got Oldham and Scunthorpe, currently adrift from safety and needing somewhat of a miracle to catch Colchester Barrow, and Carlisle dropping back down into 20th after their defeat against top of the table Forest Green yesterday. Ed and David, as always, thank you so much for your opinions and comments today.
Pleasure as always.
I hope everyone's enjoyed this podcast. We will be back to discuss all things League 1 and 2 as always next week. Until then, take care everyone, and we'll see you soon.